IHOP CEO credits her success to having teachers as parents. Here's the 3-sentence mantra they taught her and how it led to her success. Welcome back to Teacher Tales, where we give you the keys to overcoming teacher burnout to find work-life balance and educational bliss if it still exists. I'm your host, Tony Rambles, and on this episode of Teacher Tales, we learn to seek and value feedback. Number 2, we learn to take risks for growth. And number 3, we learn to leverage diverse perspectives because good leaders know that they don't need to have all the answers, but should be open to learning them from others. Now, without further ado. So, this summer, I've been looking at things outside of the classroom, and I ran across this article on CNBC.com written by Tom Huddleston Jr. Okay, shout out to the juniors. And it's about the IHOP CEO. And the title reads, CEO credits her success to having teachers as parents. Here's the 3-sentence mantra they taught her. So obviously, we are all teachers here. And I wanted to kind of just big up us a little bit because we do a lot of stuff and we are teachers always, even at home with our own kids, as we should be. So I wanted to read this article and talk about how her parents had an impact on her becoming the success that she is. So, article starts. Julia Stewart has enjoyed a long, successful business career. Her parents, both high school teachers, are a huge reason why, she says. Stewart, 68, became IHOP's first ever female CEO in 2002. 5 years later, she led a risky takeover of Applebee's that combined the two brands into one company called Dine Brands. That organization now has more than 3,500 total locations and a market value of about $600 million. So this article was written May 26, 2024. So clearly this brand has had success, but it doesn't stop there. The next part says she resigned as CEO of Dine Brands in 2017. Instead of retiring, she launched a wellness company called Alerx 3 years later. That is spelled Alurx if you want to look it up. She did this because building a startup was a challenge she hadn't yet encountered. She says, I grew up an only child with 2 school teachers who were constantly pretty much engraving in me, sentence number 1, you should be learning for the rest of your life. Number 2, you should never stop working. And number 3, you should never stop reading. Stewart tells CNBC, make it. That became sort of a mantra for me and my leadership style. It goes on to say Stewart embraced the lesson early while growing up in San Diego. She says, taking that attitude into a teenage waitressing job, ironically, at IHOP. Her goal was to save enough money for a car, but her favorite part of the job was actually collecting tips at the end of a shift because her manager would share observations on how she'd done and where she could improve to offer better service and earn more money, she says. Now, I want to take this opportunity to ask you, fellow educator, a question. Who can you go to that can give you some real feedback? Like that can really tell you that you were doing something really well, or you can make some tweaks here or there. But who's that person that you can go to that really can tell you what you, not just what you want to hear, but what you need to hear? I want you to send that person a message and tell them to go listen to this episode. I loved getting feedback every day, says Stewart, adding, there was always this notion of wanting to make it better, and I think that just stuck with me. Stewart spent the 1980s working as a marketing manager for restaurant brands like Carl's Jr. and Burger King. After rising to a vice president role, Stewart decided she'd never become a CEO without experiencing a role that directly steered business decisions. Sometimes you have to leave kind of like a good job because it's not getting you to the place that you ultimately want to go. So you may have to take a lateral step or sometimes even a step back in order to take those 2, 3, 4 steps forward. It goes on to say she left her cushy marketing role to join an executive training program at Taco Bell. That required her to put on a uniform and spend a few months working on the restaurant floor as an assistant general manager. Now, how many people would have taken that risk and moved from marketing director or a wonderful marketing role to like working on the floor at a Taco Bell? Nah. Stewart embraced her parents' lesson. She says, the more she learned about how Taco Bell locations made money, the more she could apply those lessons on a larger scale. Good leaders need to recognize they may not always have the answers and be secure enough to seek help from anyone. She adds, including junior staffers at the fast food joint. So have your eyes and your ears and your heart open to be able to get that feedback that you need, because you never know where the good ideas will come from. You never know where that great lesson or this great program or this great new structure that you may want to use in your own classroom or within your own clubs or organizations. You never know where it can come from. It goes on to say, I think as you get older and you become successful, you realize I don't have to be the smartest person in the room. She says, I've never had somebody say, no, I'm not going to help. Now, this is the part of the article where we see that she sought out a new challenge. It says, constant learning is a common trait among successful leaders. Jeff Bezos, for example, crafted a list of leadership principles for Amazon's employees during his time as CEO. They included the idea that good leaders should always seek diverse perspectives and work to disconfirm their beliefs. That means just challenge them until you can basically prove them right or prove them wrong. In Stewart's case, she spent the 3 years between leaving Dime Brands and founding Alerx researching her options, she says. Once she settled on doing something health related, she interviewed doctors, psychologists, and other medical staff to better understand the industry. The same habit is proving useful again now as she navigates the scrappier world of entrepreneurship for the first time. She adds, I wanted to do something that was different, that would challenge me in a different way. And that's exactly what happened. So that's the end of the article. Very well written by Tom Huddleston Jr. on the CNBC.com website about Julia Stewart's rise to becoming the CEO of Dime Brands and running a very large, successful company. But she also thinks back to her childhood, and I want to go over those 3 sentences again. That says, number 1, you should be learning for the rest of your life. That can come in many different forms. You don't have to, quote unquote, go back to school to learn. I have found that a lot of times when we have like these enforced deadlines and we have papers and stuff that we have to turn in and money that we have to pay, it forces our hand a little bit to continue to learn and to read and to challenge our own thinking. So we should be learning for the rest of our life, but that can also look like just reading more books. Now we have YouTube and there's tons of things that you can just listen to, audiobooks. There's so much stuff out there that can keep you learning, especially in your area of expertise. So number 1, we definitely should all be learning, but how you do that is totally dependent on you. Number 2, this sentence says you should never stop working. Now, this one is very, I think, tricky, because I think we all get to this point where we want to retire, or we think about retirement. Retirement is something that is talked about all the time, tier 1 and tier 2 and tier 5 and all that stuff. And I think that when you stop living with purpose, then you begin to have less fulfillment in life. So for me, teaching is part of my purpose. I love to teach. I've said it many, many times on the show that I am a teacher no matter where I go, no matter what I do. So for me to quote unquote retire and to stop teaching, I think would be a detriment to who I am. So I think even in retirement, maybe leaving education, I would be able to find a way to continue to work and to continue to use my skills and my talent, my experience to serve others. So I think that is the spirit of this sentence. You should never stop working, because I think that extends you into working in purpose and serving other people. I think that's what I'm taking from it. Okay, third sentence is you should never stop reading. Now, I find that once I started school, I definitely read less of the stuff that I would like to read. Um, a couple of years back, I was really into reading again, and I read a bunch of different books. I got into a couple of different series, and then sometimes we just fall out of it. It's not a part of our daily routine, or I'll just speak personally. Reading is not a part of my daily routine, but it's never too late to start back reading again. And the cool thing is that once we get out of school and we kind of have this leeway to just pick whatever we want, anybody can be a reader. Anybody can find stuff that they would like to read, whether that's biographies, whether that's fiction, science fiction, nonfiction, whatever you want. It could graphic novels, whatever it is. Finding a way to read helps to, I think, open our minds more to the creative side that we have. Some people may think that they're not creative. I think everyone is creative in some way, right? You may not be a painter or a drawer. You may not make music, but you do think creatively about something. Now, we all got to find out what that is for each of us, but I feel like when you do find it, it'll help you live a more fulfilling, purposeful, fun life. So let's recap. Number one, you should be learning for the rest of your life, whatever that looks like, in whatever way. Do it. Learn. Learn more stuff? Question mark. Number two, you should never stop working. Now, you may retire from the career that you have. You may retire from being a teacher, but there's always going to be plenty of work to do, plenty of people to serve, and just continue to use your gifts and talents for the good of people. And number three, you should never stop reading. I think this may be the hardest one because there's other ways to entertain ourselves, but do your best. Keep reading. Start reading. And with that being said, that is our episode for today. Of course, I'll have someone else on this Thursday, another educator, Wes Howard, the brother of John, who was on last week, one of many educators in their family, to talk about more of this kind of stuff. For more teacher tips on burnout and time management, join our Facebook group, Teacher Triumphs, Overcoming Burnout and Balancing Life. This is where we share applicable strategies and encourage each other on the journey through education. Until next time, keep teaching, keep learning, and I will see you all on the next journey.